Hi everybody, this is Fred. Welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be the debrief for the trip that my wife and I took down to Spruce Knob in West Virginia, where we went backpacking from Spruce Knob down to Seneca Creek. If you haven't seen that video yet, I'll link to it at the end of this video, so be sure to check that out. Now before I get too far into this video, I do want to mention that the vast majority of the trip planning for this trip came from a website that I found. It's called Into the Backcountry, and whoever put that together did a really great job of laying out the trip that we took. So I pretty much modeled our trip off of what was on that website. If you are planning to go on this hike, I would definitely recommend that you go and check out that website first. I'm going to link to it in the description of this video. But whoever did it, they did a great job. I mean, there's an interactive map. He's got descriptions of the trails. He's got GPS coordinates and basically all the information that you need to take the same exact hike that we did. The only difference is that we spread it over 2 nights, whereas when he lays it out, he's just assuming that you're gonna be backpacking for 1 night. But other than that, our trip was identical to that. Now I will show you a brief view of the map and give you kind of an outline of the route that we took in this video, but it's not going to be anywhere in as much detail as what you're going to find on that website. Now Spruce Knob is the highest point in West Virginia, and that's where the hike begins. And the trailhead itself is actually right next to the parking lot, so it's one of those situations where you park your car and you can literally start hiking immediately. Now they do have a little bit of a park there. There's an observation tower, which I did show in the video. There's restrooms up there and a few picnic tables for a picnic area and things like that. So if you wanted to take a little bit of a break before you started your hike, it is a good place to do that. Now Spruce Knob is about an hour and 20-minute drive from the town of Elkins, West Virginia. And what we did is we stayed in a hotel in Elkins the night before our hike as well as the night after. We stayed at a Holiday Inn Express there, which was actually a really nice hotel, but if that one's not to your liking, there were a few others that you could choose from in that town. Now as I mentioned, at Spruce Knob there is a short trail that goes to an observation tower, and as you saw in the trip video, we did check that out. Now when you get to the top of that tower, the view is pretty good, but it is somewhat blocked by some trees that have kind of grown up. And what I would recommend doing is continuing down the little trail that moves past that tower, and the views will open up along that trail, and you actually get some better views of the mountains from those areas than you do up on the tower itself. So it's definitely worth hiking. I think it's maybe only a half-mile trail. It's definitely worth hiking that whole trail around back to the parking lot to check out all the different vantage points that you can get a pretty good view. What I'm going to do now is I am going to take you to the map, and I'm going to kind of give you a brief overview of the route that we did hike. This is the U.S. Forest Service map for the Seneca Creek backcountry, and our hike started at the Huckleberry Trailhead, which is right here, and that's actually right at the Spruce Knob area parking lot. And what we did is we hiked down the Huckleberry Trail, which is this light blue colored trail here. We worked our way north down the Huckleberry Trail, and we came to the point where it intersects with both the Horton Trail, which is this pink colored trail, and the Lumberjack Trail, which is this brown colored trail. At that point we turned right and we headed down the Lumberjack Trail. Now the plane crash is somewhere right in this area here. It's on this western side of the trail, and it's approximately midway in between where you first pick up the Lumberjack Trail and where it intersects with the High Meadows Trail. So if you do want to visit the plane crash, you want to start looking for the little side trail that goes down to it over in this section here. So then what we did is we continued down after looking at the plane. We continued down the Lumberjack Trail and we picked up the High Meadows Trail, which is this green colored trail over here. And we hiked around the High Meadows Trail, and that's where the views started opening up and we saw those first views of the mountains. So it's a pretty scenic trail through here, and it kind of goes past that open area where the mountains are, and then it goes back into the woods, and then it intersects down here with the Horton Trail. Once we got to that point, we turned right on the Horton Trail and we took it down the hill, and we're getting really close to the creek at this point. And we hiked down to where it intersects with the Seneca Creek Trail, which is this green trail that runs this way. Seneca Falls is right in this area where the Horton Trail and the Seneca Creek Trail meet. What you want to do is when you get down to that area, you just want to continue down the Horton Trail just a little ways. It's, I don't know, maybe 50 yards or 75 yards at the most, and you'll run right into Seneca Falls. So when you're in that area, that's definitely when you want to stop and take time to check out the falls. After we were done with that, we headed down the Seneca Creek Trail, and we found our campsite was somewhere right around this area here. Somewhere in this vicinity. We were on the eastern side of the river, even though the trail does start on the western side. We did have to cross the creek to get over to our campsite, which was kind of nice because that kind of put us off the trail. So any foot traffic that we did see was on the other side of the stream, so we didn't have people walking right by our campsite. On day 2, when we took that day hike, we just kind of crossed the stream and we continued down the Seneca Creek Trail this way. Now this map doesn't do a really good job of actually showing the creek itself, but we did cross over the stream a couple of times on that day hike. That's just the way the trail goes. It kind of flip-flops from one side of the stream to the other. And we kind of walked past this intersection here with the Judy Springs Trail, and I'm not quite sure how far we got down, you know, maybe somewhere into this area before we decided to turn back and go back to our campsite. On the final day, what we did is, again, we headed back down the Seneca Creek Trail, and we picked up the Judy Springs Trail right here, and that's right after you cross that bridge that I show in the video. And that's where that sign is that kind of is confusing, that points out both Judy Springs and the Judy Springs Trail. We actually kind of got turned around ourselves because we started going the wrong way when we looked at that sign. That's how I kind of figured out initially that it was really confusing, and we started hiking up into the woods this way because it looked like there was a trail going there, and I'm not sure how far we went, but you know, before too long it was evident that that wasn't the way that you were supposed to go. There's a campsite right there where that area is, so we turned around, went back, and what you want to do is you want to go past that campsite and pick up Judy Springs Trail, which is going to bring you up this way. So in other words, when you get to where that sign is, you want to go left. You don't want to go right. And we weren't the only ones. We ran into another group when we were out hiking, and we were talking to them, and they got turned around in that same exact spot, and they got just as confused as we did. So I think it's kind of a common mistake that people make, so it's just something to be aware of. Anyway, we continued up the Judy Springs Trail once we got that all figured out, and there are some great views of the mountains from the Judy Springs Trail as well. And it continues up the hill, and it eventually intersects again with the Horton Trail, which again is this pink trail here. What we did at that point is we turned right on the Horton Trail, and it came right back up to that same intersection where the Huckleberry Trail and the Lumberjack Trail met, which is where we were on day 1. So from that point, it was just a matter of picking up the Huckleberry Trail again, and we just hiked all the way back up the same way we did on the first day, all the way back to our car, which was up here at the trailhead. All in all, on the first day, our hike, you know, from the starting point down to where we camped, I'm guessing was probably around 10 miles. And on the day that we hiked out, that was probably another 6 miles back out. So all in all, it was a 16 to 17 mile hike, somewhere in that range. Now overall, I'm going to say that this was a fairly challenging hike, at least for us it was. Apart from all of the rocks on the trail that I mentioned in the trip video, on your hike out, there is a lot of elevation gain. We were pretty much hiking uphill the entire time on our last day there. Now, I would definitely recommend trekking poles on this hike. They do help a lot when you're trying to hike over all those rocks to keep you from turning an ankle. They saved my ankles probably 3 or 4 times on the entire trip. Also, they do come in handy when you do have the stream crossings. So that brings up another point. Do plan on getting your feet wet on this hike. The Seneca Creek Trail does cross the stream several times. You may or may not be able to rock hop to get across. It's just going to depend on how high the water is at the time that you're there. You're better off just to assume that your feet are going to get wet and plan accordingly. Now, if you did see my trip video, you might remember that I was wondering if there was a place to park at the Seneca Creek trailhead if you wanted to just hike the Seneca Creek trail itself, just for a nice, easy out and back backpacking trip. And I am happy to report that there is parking there. When we got done with our hike, we drove over there to check it out, and I would say that the parking area would probably hold about 12 vehicles. So there is a good shot that you'd have a place to park there and start your hike from that location. Now, I will say that this is a really busy area, so if you're there on the weekend, your chances of getting a parking spot are probably diminished. But if you go hiking midweek, I think you probably would be able to find a parking spot there without too much trouble. I personally think this would be a really nice, easy out and back hike. The Seneca Creek Trail, for the most part, I think is going to be fairly level since it does follow the stream. And it is going to give you the option to get to all of those nice camping areas that I show in the trip video. And you'd also be able to go over and visit Seneca Falls, because Seneca Falls is right where that trail ends, where it meets the Horton Trail. So you could definitely incorporate that into your trip as well. Now, one thing I will warn you about is the road that you take to get to that Seneca Creek trailhead is pretty rough after you pass the turnoff to go up to Spruce Knob. It kind of turns into more of a gravel road, and there are a lot of holes and ruts in it. So you do spend a lot of time driving around those, and you can't go very fast. So you definitely take it slow as you're going down that way so that you don't screw up your car. But it is passable. You just have to kind of drive carefully. I think that that's everything that I wanted to talk about today, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this video up. If you are planning to hike down at Spruce Knob, I hope that you found it helpful. If you have any questions about the hike or about the trails or anything related to the trip, please feel free to leave them in the comments, and I will do my best to answer them. Also, I should mention that I did make a GPX file for this trip that I did use with our GPS Waypoints Navigator app. If you would like a copy of that GPX file, please feel free to send me an email and I'll be happy to send it to you. You can find my email address if you look at the channel description. Thanks so much for watching the video. If you found it helpful, I would really appreciate it if you could give me a thumbs up. That really does help out a YouTuber quite a bit. And also, if this content is helpful to you, I would also ask that you consider subscribing to my channel. Thanks for watching today, everybody, and have a great day.